Hello and welcome to FireDEV, a fireside chat with people in the industry. Today, my guest is Pascal Tonecker. Pascal, how are you doing?
I'm doing excellent. Thanks for asking. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. The weather was decent in the UK, but it's you know what the UK weather's like. Everyone's heard of it, around the world. So it's up and down. The fact that we got some nice days, I think that's a blessing in itself.
Exactly. So you can even enjoy the last good days even more. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. It's one of those things that you don't know when the last days are gonna be, because every summer you kind of get this feeling, especially in the UK. You get to about September, and you still have some decent days, and you're like, we're in September, the days are still decent. It's almost like it's not gonna end, and then you wake up and then you
It's
realize
gone.
all the good days are gone. Like it just drops. Like you'll get some
Yeah,
like really good like mid 20s, high 20s days sometime in September, and then the next day it's just cold and horrible, and you realize it's not coming back till next June.
definitely. I can relate to that. I mean, we are not as famous for our some kind of weather situation over here in Germany, but sometimes the summer feel like this over here, because it's sometimes it does not even really start off, and then out of the sudden it's gone, and you're thinking, okay, what happened in between? I don't know. I can't recall it, but
Yeah,
that's the way it is.
yeah. I mean, I've been to Germany once, and from what I remember, I did go in the summer to be fair, but I remember the weather being warmer than the UK, like it feeling nice and warm.
Yeah, it can get really hot in here as well. I
Yes.
mean, temperatures up to something like 40 degrees Celsius easily in the summertime.
Yeah, that's definitely more than what you would expect in the UK. I mean, the UK has been getting warmer over the last few years. It does seem to be like almost every year there's some new heat record in the UK. But yeah, generally speaking, it doesn't get that hot. But yeah, I remember Germany was good weather. Another thing I noticed in Germany, very clean.
It is
Where I
indeed.
was, very
That's what I
clean.
like about it. Yeah,
Yeah, not
organized, clean.
yes. I mean, I guess that's obviously German people very clean, very to the point. Get stuff done. So which was nice to see because in the UK there's plenty of places where they're not the cleanest. There's a lot of rubbish, a lot of litter, and yeah, it could be better. I mean, there's worse places, especially considering I've been to Asia as well, but it Germany are very impressed with the cleanliness. It's very good. It was one of the things you just wouldn't see anyone walking by and just throwing something on the floor. It was,
No, normally it's not going to happen.
yeah. I mean, to talk about that, is there any like fines or strict laws behind it, or is it more of a cultural thing?
I mean, it's more of a cultural thing. It's more of a common understanding. Of course, we do also have like these laws that regulates things, but no one actually is really taken care of on the purification side. Um, so people just behave like it, but not everywhere. And of course, you can also find a lot of messed up places over here in Germany. Easily, it really depends on where you are. But let's say in the common areas, in the common space, in the common public space, it's most of the time it's very tidy.
Yeah, it is. Very clean, very tidy. Yeah, because me and my wife went to Dubai not too long ago. And when we were there, I mean, Dubai is renowned for being very clean, but they have very strict laws. Their laws are very strict around, not just cleanliness, but stealing, anything like that. So the reason none of that goes there because obviously the fear of it, and even jaywalking, or because I remember when we would book a taxi and you could the amount of times I saw a taxi driver did not want to stop too long, and wait for you just because they were scared of the fine. And I remember I asked them how much the fine was, and I converted it to pound, and I was like, "That's a pretty hefty fine." Just for staying an extra minute or so at the side, where you shouldn't be really, but it's safe. Waiting for your passenger, stuff like that. I was like, Jesus, or if you go through a red light, or if you jaywalk, that sort of stuff. Like the fines are pretty hefty. It makes you definitely not want to do it again because it's one of those things that you. you could easily rack up a few times. Because unlike a speeding ticket in the UK, you can avoid that pretty easily. Like you can stick to the 70 miles an hour speed limit, like on the motorways, and you're probably not going to be going over it too often. Whereas just staying at the side somewhere with your car, that's something
Yeah,
that you would
yeah.
commonly do in the UK. I would do it all. I do it all the time. If I need to wait for someone, I'll just put my car there, and the odd time I have got fined if there's like a camera. But generally speaking, it's usually fine. I'll have a quick scan. I'll be like, oh, I can't really see any equipment that's gonna, pick me up. I'll just leave it. But there, they were saying they've got cameras, they got like some sort of laser system, and some other system as well to detect what the cars are doing.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, they're very strict on those things, but it seemed to work somehow, with all these fines and strict rules. So, as always saying, it either hurts too much so you don't do it, or you have a personal need to change things and do it differently. So, I guess it works with the fines over there.
Yeah, I mean, it does. Fear can be a very strong motivator. The thing is, it's like, I don't know about in Germany, they must have them there as well, I guess. But speed bumps, for
Yeah, of course.
vehicles, the only reason people stop for speed bumps isn't because they care about anyone else, is because they don't want to damage the car and have to, pay for new tires or new suspension. It's purely a selfish reason. It's like, when I see a speed bump and I notice it and it's like a really harsh one, I'll be like, oh, I definitely do not want to pay for tires, or the springs, or something like that. It is pure selfishness that you
Of
stop
course.
for that. But again, it works. There's
Totally
nothing
agree.
you can do about it because the bumps are there. It, there's nothing changing that. And obviously, if you've got laws that are enforced, there's nothing changing that. So you end up behaving.
Definitely, totally agree to what you said.
Yeah.
Uh,
So, you know, getting into the podcast, you work at Crytek as director of CryEngine Enterprise Solutions. What does that entail? Because people will have heard of Crytek. A lot of people will have heard of CryEngine, but Enterprise Solutions sounds a bit, unknown, I would say, for the average listener out there.
Okay, so let me just give you a better picture, a better understanding of what I'm actually doing. So, actually, the title changed a little bit. It's like Director of Enterprise Solution without the CryEngine in the title anymore, but this is just because it's more related to the whole Crytek and not just to CryEngine. So I'm working off at CryEngine, and am responsible for the non-gaming branch, especially with our work we're doing with CryEngine. This being said, this means I'm working with different kind of industries and industry partners, doing some kind of serious games business or non-gaming related business, such as training and simulation, but also like publicly funded research projects where we work together close with different kind of universities and industrial partners to develop new kind of features, technical features especially, which are not standard to CryEngine or not even standard to other competitors, to build customized solutions. That's one of the things I'm being in charge of. On the other hand, I'm also trying to work on our media exploration, cross media exploration, especially. We hold a quite huge back catalog for IPs. So over the course of the last 22 years since Crytek exists, we did develop quite a few games, which are widely renowned or famous, like Crysis and the original Far Cry and Rise Son of Rome, just to name a few, or Hunt, our latest ones. But these IPs, they can also not just be explored via games or gaming, but of course, there's a huge interest in rich IP worlds for different kind of media like film and TV, episodic formats, serial formats, but also books and music. So what we're doing, we're partnering up with different kind of entertainment partners to make sure that these kind of rich IP worlds also find their way into different kind of media. And then, as the third bone of it, as I already mentioned, it is the research and development partnering with different kind of universities. Just to give you a short example, at the most recent project I'm doing, it's a 3 years publicly funded project with two university partners, sorry, and we developed a VR system, training and simulation system that works with light AI. So we developed, like with our partners, two different kind of AIs. One is acting as an overall supervising AI system that observes whatever you're doing within the application and can adapt the training scenario based on your behavior within the scenario. But also, there's an actual physical supervisor who control the abilities of the AI and can control how much impact the AI actually is going to generate on the training itself. And then on the other hand, we have another AI that is more like a personal trainer one on yourself, because we're collaborating with different kind of technology partners. In this specific case, it's Tesla Suit. And Tesla Suit is a full body motion tracking suit that also have a lot of sensors in the suit, not just for motion capturing, but also for physical and haptic feedback. And so we can interact with the virtual world in reality as well. This is meant for free roam VR training, so up to 150 square meters, multi-user. You have a system where you set up your training environment, explorating it in 2D, then it starts to be built in, automatically into 3D. And then you start your training, and you can have different kind of goals in there. And then you have something so-called like body pose detection observed by the motion capturing sensors of the suit, and with an ideal standard for how each exercise should be executed. And then the AI observes if this fits into the regulars or into the patterns, and then it can also sanction it, your actions, or even also give you some kind of physical or visual or audio feedback if you did things right or wrong. And this is quite interesting because it's a very holistic approach, which hasn't had done so far for this kind of training and simulation.
Okay, I mean, there's a lot there to unpack. Like the first thing I want to ask about, you said about like books and music. Can you dive a bit more into what that entails and what it is, and also some examples that people could Google or would have heard of.
Yes, for sure. Just imagine one of our latest games is called Hunt Showdown.
Hmm.
And for Hunt Showdown, we do everything in house, not just the visual production, not just like all the commercials and all trailers and media production in house, but all the music and all the sound design and everything is built in house. So for this specific game, we also created a band, in-house band, which do compose and perform all the original music for the game. And this became quite famous within the gaming community. And nowadays, it's not just a huge success within the gaming community, but also you can download it and stream it on Spotify, Apple Music, and all bigger streaming portals. And it's getting quite successful. It has a huge fan base, even from people who never played the game so far. So this is one of the examples which I was recalling.
Okay. And you said that Crytek does everything in house. Is that like literally everything, including marketing and campaigns?
Exactly. So we have different kind of teams. Of course, we have a um, production chain that is pretty much standardized, like pipeline work. But besides the pure production work that is necessary to produce a game, We have all the different kind of departments, even for the server structure, for online services, marketing, PR, everything that is related to social marketing, everything is in house. And even if I recall to in house, as we changed our working policies 2 years, almost 2 years ago, to a remote or hybrid first model. We're still talking about in-house because these people are working remote, but they are employees of Crytek and they can work literally all over the world, um, which our team is really thankful for. But we still have like a core group that is working within our office in Frankfurt, and with an overall headcount of almost like 500 people at the moment. This is quite a thing because we employ like all different kinds, from the accounting to sound design, to visual effects guys, to marketing, to even, I don't know, we even have drivers, and people who pick up stuff, um, like logistics, because there are so many things that needs to be done on a daily basis if you operate in a company like in this size.
Okay. Definitely very interesting. So, I mean, what interests me about that is last week I had a guest on the podcast that worked for Allied Global Marketing. And, they did campaigns for video game companies, especially when they're, collaborating with a non video game company on some sort of campaign, for example. You know, how you've had I don't know if you've got it in Germany or you heard of it, but in the UK, there's been a lot of Lucasade and Xbox collaborations. Wasn't done by Alloy, but done by someone else. But that's the sort of things that Alloy does. And I see a lot of companies using third-party agencies. Obviously, marketing is one, but you can outsource it for other work as well, VFX, maybe even some design and that sort of stuff. So, like, what is the strong reasoning for Crytek keeping it in house versus outsourcing it? And has Crytek ever outsourced it? And did they decide to just bring it back in house?
Yes, of course. We also do. We do also out housing stuff, like contractors work, especially when we talking about the games. Let's just um, figuring out, or let's just imagine you have a lot of scenes that need to be motion captured. So a lot of motion capture is also done in house. We have different kind of partners we're working with, like hardware and technical partners, to have the yeah, like very accurate capturing methods and suits and stuff. But if we are in a bigger production and we need to record a lot of stuff, different kind of actions, we also go to outsourcing partners, to motion capturing studios, for example, to do all the capturing work. But also sometimes we also had productions in the past where we did intro scenes in a very artistic way, which we hired companies to do so because they had the best expertise and an artistic style we loved to have on specific games, like um, Rice, Son of Rome. The whole intro sequence was made by a Polish company who was renowned for their graphic impact in also in Hollywood productions. And we want to partner with them or work with them, collaborate with them to have this specific look in the intro sequence. And these things are normally shared with external partners. But most of the time, we do not work like with agencies or anything that you were calling on, because we have a common production outcome, like a steady production outcome. I'm sorry, constantly producing, and so we figured out that this would be the best if we have these services in house. So we also have a media production service in house, so we can really react on a timely manner and also play a little bit around, be creative in a different level. But if we're looking for specific things that we cannot do by ourselves, or we know that we are going to need an external expertise, then of course we're always looking for external partners.
Okay, so it's not a matter of never. It's just a matter of doing it in house, and if it's really beneficial, than doing it, doing some sort of collaboration or outsourcing it.
Of course.
Yeah, because that's one thing I have seen a lot in recent years because everyone's doing it. It's become the in thing to just outsource now. And in some areas I think it works really well, but then there's other areas they just doesn't work well, and you're just outsourcing for the sake of outsourcing, maybe because it's cheaper because you're outsourcing to a country like India, for example, or maybe just because everyone else is doing it, you don't want to put a bit of extra effort in and do it in-house. You just outsource it instead. So, and obviously Crytek is an older company as well. So obviously they'll have procedures and systems in place versus a company that might only be 5 years old, where to kind of you know get to the same level or to the same speed as something like Crytek or one of the other AAA studios. They even need a lot of money, and even then there's the time aspect, or they can just start outsourcing it, and then I usually see they start bringing stuff in house again once they get a bit of money, they get a bit of success, they learn how these things work. So yeah, I think that's definitely a decent way of going about it. You mentioned Rise Son of Rome. A lot of people have fond memories of that game, and there seems to be a lot of fans that want another one. Can we expect a new one anytime soon? Is Crytek working on one?
Um, I mean, it was a great game for sure, and it's still holding up to its standards because it was outstanding for what the first or initial Xbox had to offer on hardware side.
Hmm.
We really made the best out of it, and also the gameplay was fun to play, and we had a big and
It
huge
was
fan base.
different. I
It
remember
was
seeing.
different, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I remember because it was kind of, with the quick time events, kind of God of War and a bit, it was less open compared to something like Assassin's Creed, but that
Hmm.
was a nice change of pace to have something less open but more cinematic, and then the graphics looking amazing as well. Because when that came
Exactly.
out, I remember playing that at uni on my Xbox One when I first got the Xbox One, and that even to this day, Rise Son of Rome still looks like a very good game, graphically speaking. But that's just Crytek all over. Their games are always fidelity wise always the best. Far Cry, as you said, the original, Crysis, obviously, the meme, can it run Crysis? And obviously, Rise, Son of Rome as well. And the more recent stuff as well.
Yeah, I mean that's great to hear because that's what the community love about the games made from Crytek, and we also set standards or defined standards back in the days as well, and we try to keep up with that kind of heritage, of course, even within our new games. So what I can say about the future of some of our games, we announced that we are working on C4. So
Which
we'll
I'm
try
so
to see.
excited for. When I saw that little teaser, and when I saw it, I saw an article because I use a news feed client called Feedly, and when I saw it, there was a video attached to it, and I clicked it, I watched it, and I kind of thought. It's just fan made or something, It's not real because you get a lot of fan made stuff. Then I looked at it; it was
Exactly.
from the official Crytek YouTube channel. I was like, no, is this real? Then I googled it. I was like, no, it's actually happening. I remember texting my cousin because I loved playing that game when I was a kid. When that came out, back in '06, and when they were showing off videos. I mean, in '07 it came out, but they were showing off videos in '06, and I think there was some YouTube videos in '05 as
Mhm.
well in the jungle when the interface was a little different. And I remember my cousin loving it as well. And I remember just messaging. I was like, they announced a new, Crysis 4. You know, it's happening. It's to me, it's on the level of Half Life. It's that thing that I think will never happen, but it gets announced. I'm still waiting for Half Life though.
um, I mean, maybe it's not the best thing to say, but not a gamer per se. Um, I have two boys, teenager, almost grown up, or grown up, like 15 and 20, and they love gaming. They really love gaming, especially when it comes to competitive gaming and first-person shooters, but also puzzles and stuff like that. I'm more like a convenient gamer. I like mobile games from time to time, logic and puzzle games, but I'm not into. I cannot even play, and maybe it's a shame. I cannot even play Hunt Showdown because I'm so terrible at it. I'm so terrible. I mean, I'm in my end 40s now, and so my reaction time is really not getting better over the years. And there are so many different kind of actions that you can perform here, and my reaction time is way too low. So and this also uh, fits pretty much to all the games on the market. So I cannot really reference any other games because I'm not playing those games.
No playing guns. Fair enough. But like that's a good segue because you're working at Crytek, a
I know.
a triple A studio, the creators of the original Far Cry, and more importantly, Crysis. Like what Crysis is to the gaming industry and the gaming community, and to the PC gaming community, because it's always that thing. Even though I know you've got Crysis on. Including the first one on consoles now, but it's always that thing, Crisis on PC, Crisis on PC,
Yeah.
and especially when you gain that really high frame rate, you're trying to check every single box in the settings as well. Obviously there's it's the game in terms of graphics. And also the gameplay as well was fantastic. But you work in the game industry, AAA studio, but you didn't come from gaming. You're not a huge gamer yourself. How did that all come about?
Yeah, I mean, it's been quite a journey to get there. So originally, I started somehow in the filming industry, especially in commercial filming industry. When I was quite young, starting as a production hand runner. That's what we call them here over in Germany, like stagehand or um, fixer. So and then I worked like all different kind of departments within this commercial filming industries. But I learned pretty fast that producing is was my thing. So I started to work as a junior producer. Got hired for different companies and worked along the success chain, so to say, quite a bit. But I figured out that the playing production was not enough. I also was into these. I do not call myself creative, but I love to work with the creative teams. So I became something that is so-called like creative producer. So I was working on concepts and then was producing all these ideas as well, pitching a lot to different kind of clients. And then in 2000, I worked for the World Expo in Hanover for some clients, and I had my first augmented reality project, which was called tele immersion back in the day. So no one knew about the expression augmented reality. And there I learned that I have a huge fascination for innovation, technology, and gadgets. And from there on, I tried to get more into this kind of working field. Then I did um, yeah, like I said, commercial film for quite some time, switched over to short movies, and from there to post production, was working for different post production partners. And from post production, I switched over to visual effects. Um, in between, I quitted to work on all that, founded a company that was specialized in insect breeding on a large scale for industry scale for as a substitute for fish meal and soy. Sold the company a year later and started again in the visual effects industry. Was running a visual effects company called Pixelmundo in Frankfurt as a managing producer and CEO for 4 years before switching over to Crytek. But what I did, especially over there and in the years before, I was so much into interactive technology already, trying to develop new kind of technology for especially the pre-production and the post-production chain to make things easier and more sophisticated, especially not for the artists, but also for actors, like using early technologies when even before the HoloLens, the first HoloLens was announced, there were other products like this on the market. I used them like experimentally did some prototyping with a few people back in the days where we used this kind of technology to work on shows like Game of Thrones and brought up the dragons on a mixed reality headset to make them available in real life space, in three dimensional space in your real environment, so you can get a better understanding of the proportions of the size and the masses of these creatures we were generating for the show. So the animators could gain a better understanding of how they should behave in real life, because they always had to see them on screen. And of course, they could zoom in, but they could never experience the whole life size. And just imagine if you're working on a creature that is as big as a jumbo jet, you need to get a better understanding if you want to make it as lifelike as possible. And so we started to prototype and develop a lot of these so-called virtual production technologies back in the days, without having a proper use case or showcase. So this was like all experimental. Then I started with industry partners of different areas to work on interactive projects. So we did quite a bunch of projects. They Some of them are still running, like in New York. It's called Encounters Odysseys for National Geographic. It's a whole interactive show where you can interact with different kind of characters or creatures that are the main characters of the whole show. You're learning a lot of things, but also for clients like IBM, where we had interactive press showrooms to tell sales stories to the clients, with that have different kind of features, where we use objects and object detection and cameras, time of flight cameras, but also color sensors to identify these objects and have interactive storytelling events for these meetings and clients' sales events that were happening. And so my basic interest was always to combine these different kind of technologies out there in the market, because one of my biggest passions is researching in all different kind of innovation and technology driven markets, and try just to, yeah, I see the technology world, or the world in general, more like a big warehouse where you can find on shelf A you will find this, on shelf B you will find that, and each of these products have maybe a purpose, and they were developed for a specific purpose. But if you rethink the purpose, and if you just combine these two elements, or maybe a third one, a fourth one, and combine in a completely different way to fix a problem that no one has ever thought about, you can create something that is completely new. And this is what I like about it.
Okay, I mean that's definitely very interesting. And I remember before you were saying that the sort of games that you like to play are mobile games. Crytek, I remember a few years ago, I think it's been about 10 years now, about 10, 11 years, they did a push into mobile with Fibble Flick and Roll on iOS. I remember playing that. And like, is there any plans of Crytek getting back into mobile? Why did they stop with just that game? And that seems a bit of a different kind of game compared to Far Cry, Hunt Showdown, Crysis. Their typical bread and butter.
Mm, so, I mean, yes, we had some attempts to work in the mobile space as well, and developed a pretty nice branch of CryEngine that used all the mighty power of CryEngine back in the days, especially the physics engine, which was and still is pretty advanced. And it was a very nice game, and we had studios that were specialized in that. But we figured out that what CryEngine was standing for, especially the visual fidelity you already mentioned by yourself, which CryEngine and Crytek is most famous for, could not be achieved in the way that the creative leads of Crytek were looking for back in the days. And they said, so, okay, CryEngine is a high performance engine, and if we have a certain kind of standard that we want to achieve with all our games, and if this cannot be done, then we need to pass on till that kind of technology actually exists and we can run and develop with our quality standards in mind. But things, of course, have changed, and we also showed some attempts that CryEngine can nowadays run pretty well on mobile devices. We did showcases with Google, and also if you scan the internet, YouTube and co, you will find demos where we're showcasing how well different kind of technology or different kind of showcases that we produce can also run on a mobile chipset, not just on a Quest by Meta or something, but also on a real mobile device like a mobile phone. Even with software-based ray tracing, and yeah, these things are quite interesting for us as well, and for sure, there will development. There is going to happen development in this kind of technology in the, not to name it, but in the future, so to say. I cannot tell too much, but let's say there's a we have a long road to go, but we're doing our homework constantly, and we have nice ideas and a pretty nice roadmap as well for our technology, which we share with the public as well, and we have developer podcasts also ongoing, produced in house on a regular base, where you can learn a lot about where CryEngine and Crytek specifically is heading to into the future.
Okay, so, good to hear. I look forward to the announcements. I feel like they'll probably have some tie-in, just personally, with obviously, Crysis. Another thing that Crytek a few years ago, I think about a decade ago, did a big push. I remember, the then CEO, Sivat Yearly, making the announcement of all Crysis, all Crytek games are going to be free to play going forward. That was a big push, and that was where the industry, especially because of mobile, was going. But then Crytek went back to selling you games for a fixed price. What happened to that? Push, because obviously they released Warface, and but that was really it. Then after that, it went back to selling you games.
I mean, there's not so much I can say about the events that happened in the past and the decision were made. But yes, I know that we had this kind of plans in the past, and we were also doing use cases like Warface, you mentioned it already, to figure out how the community would actually work with a game as a service like this. We're now having a game as a service, which is Hunt Showdown, which is comes with a price tag, as you said. But um, for sure, we still have this like business model in mind that a free to play might be a good way to go for certain kind of IPs. At the moment, we stick to our common strategy, selling our games, having early access and stuff like this. What will happen in the future? Just be curious, and you will figure out.
Okay, that's interesting to hear. So, talking about all of this, one of the things I want to hear about is like what are the main things that Crytek looks for when recruiting? Because obviously, a big company like this, they make all these games, make this amazing engine, all these products. They obviously have a great team. What can a person do to stand out to get hired by Crytek? What does Crytek look for?
That really depends on what department, but in general, I can say we do have very high standards to our staff. Um, so let's say if you would like to work within the game production, especially in the game production teams, as any kind of artist, either it's a technical artist or pipeline artist or whatever, you need to have like very good programming skills. You need to, so this is something we're lagging most of the time. We have pretty nice candidates coming from all over, having a vast experience with certain kind of real-time engines. Um, I mean, our main competitors and the big market players, we're still number three in the market, but these two others, they are like very, very big. And
Mhm.
especially if you have people working on, let's say, one of these products, most of the time, they're lagging a lot of C++ um,
Yes, there's definitely a
capabilities.
big push
Yeah,
away from C++, either with blueprints for Unreal, or more drag and drop based stuff, or some other custom
exactly.
scripting language.
And so if you let's say if you used to work a lot with blueprints or plugins and templates as well as you can do within other engines, it's very handy. It's perfect, and your when you create something, it will look very nice and will work and function pretty well right from the beginning, more or less. But over time, it's like all this no-code stuff, which I'm a big fan from. Really depends on what, but where's the big differentiator between game A and game B if they all look the same, if they all have the same game logic, if they, yeah, because
Yeah,
things are
and
getting reused all the time. If you're using the same templates, then it might have the same like assets or environment things that you can
similar
report.
lighting, similar. I know what you mean.
Yeah,
I'll play
similar
a
color
game. I'll play
exactly, similar
games
color
all the
codes and
time,
stuff.
and I'll just know what engine it's made in. Like I'll play and I'll be like,
Exactly.
this just feels like an Unreal game. Like, and most of the time I'm right, or even if it's not Unreal, even if it's different, I'm like, this kind of feels like this other game that I've played, and then I'll check the engines the same. Don't get me wrong. When a big studio really does a lot of customization, when they have like more of a custom version of that engine, they do get their own, feel to it. But again, that's
Exactly.
not going to be most studios. They're not going to do that level of customization. They're not going to have the skill set or the time or the money. That's going to be the odd studio that'll get Unreal, and it's they'll you hear about it. Instead of Unreal Engine 2, they had like Unreal Engine 2.5, and they had their own version of it, or like an in between version between Unreal Engine 4 and 5, for example, with all these plugins. But yeah, you're right. They do have a certain feel to them that it it makes it feel off the shelf for a lot of titles.
Yeah, but I can tell you that, especially when it comes to larger studios and our industry partners, they really like the capabilities that CryEngine brings when it comes to C++ development. Because even if you have a team that is not related to games development, but they are like computer engineers and they used to work with C++ a lot, they can easily adapt to our engine and program stuff that they are looking for and needing for their projects. So this is what I get quite often as a feedback, what the people really do like about our engine. Um, and so this is one of the basic skills that we are looking for when it comes to new hires. But of course, there's also um, what we also do. We're building teams in regards of skill set, but also teams in regards of how people will work together, how they will fit into a given construct somehow. And you can never tell like 100%, but our HR team is so close, works so closely together with the artists. We always try to keep a constant communication. We have surveys, we have weekly events, we have different kind of groups. Even most of the people are working remotely nowadays. We have these events also online. So they get a really good sense of our staff and try to make sure that these people can build a good team. So I mean, sounds easy and it's not very well explained. I'm I'm certain about that, but It works somehow.
Okay, that's good. So, you know, talking about these engines, what are the three main reasons in your eyes somebody should use CryEngine over Unreal or Unity?
Reason number one, it is still visual fidelity if you know what you're doing. Which so both the visual fidelity and the physics in CryEngine is still like top notch. So, but you have to work with the engine. Um, of course, you will get very nice results out of the box, but if you know how to use the engine, you can get stunning results. On the other hand, as I said, it's customizable. If you're working not just as an indie in smaller projects, you can do a whole project all by yourself. You have a very steep learning curve, but then you have a if you have a solid foundation, you can build beautiful games or applications, not just relate to games. And then on the third hand, I mean, um, let's say you want to create something that is not like everything else, like I referred to earlier. Like it's not the seventh clone of something else that you already seen. It doesn't. It's not a lookalike because you already know the color scheme. You do not already know all the assets. You do not know already all the game logic and
Mm,
everything, because it's not the 7,000 blueprint and whatsoever. So you can create more unique gameplays. So these, in my opinion, these are the main reasons.
okay. So, like, one of the, things that I noticed when playing some Crytek games, you've got Crysis, a big one, Rise Son of Rome, and, the VR stuff. Obviously, they had the Robinson VR, and then, the Climb 1 and 2. They feel different to each other. Like if so many times I'll play the client, and outside of obviously the Crytek logo at the start, I forget it's a Crytek game, and it feels like it's a different engine almost. So like, how does Crytek achieve that? So Crysis, Rise Son of Rome, and and the VR efforts. How do they feel so different?
So referring to our VR work, and you need to take into account, especially Robinson the Journey, and more, even more than Robinson the Journey, Dinosaur Island, which was a VR showcase to demonstrate the VR capabilities of CryEngine, which were more or less like experimental back in the days. And if you just have a look at Robinson, you will still see that look and feel from Crysis somehow. It's very stunning. All the vegetarian or the not the vegetarian, um, the plant system, the environment, everything is beautiful and stunning. And we had to work a lot and hard to make it possible to run this on the HMDs back in the days and the computers, especially with the given graphics. But we want to showcase that it's doable and possible because most of the people were complaining that VR is is not ready yet. I mean, some people still say the same nowadays that VR is not ready yet. I don't know when it will ever be ready for those kind of people. But
Yeah, because
we,
the thing is, if you look at mobile, yes, it's a lot better than it was 10 years ago. But mobile games obviously aren't as good as a PlayStation 5 game. Definitely not as good as a PC game. Because the thing is, those other higher end platforms, they are they're constantly advancing. It's not like they've stopped, and you just need to catch up to them. You're never gonna catch up to them. So yeah, you're right. When is enough for the VR stuff? For me personally, I think the graphics for the really good games are very good. Yeah, I want to see better graphics in VR. Fantastic. But I think they are very good to get a very nice experience. What I want to see now is other improvements for the gaming
exactly.
experience. I want to see, the headset. I just don't find it that comfortable. I've tried many VR headsets, and none of them I feel like I could leave on for hours and do a gaming session the way especially when I was a kid, where I would play hours on at a time and not get up. I can't do that in VR. Like, I want a better headset like that. I want other technologies. Like, there's so many other ways to make VR better without making the graphics better.
Yeah, but these developments are happening, and
They are, yes.
yeah, I mean, just if you just take into account what happened within the last 5 years or the last 10 years, then it's almost insane what happened. And but referring back to our work and to the games and why Climb looks different than the other Crytek games, but that's exactly what we want. We want to create something that is unique because it was released for the first time on this platform. Because yeah, Robinson was a launch title for the PlayStation VR. So, and it was played with this a very special set of controllers, and it was more like a visual showcase. It was also some kind of puzzle game where you could walk around, but it was not a room scale experience. It was more stationary, and then you had to resolve this kind of task. And in between, it was like you're living in a movie, like in Jurassic Park or something. You had this incredible dinosaurs and everything, and it was stunning, but not this much like interaction action. But within within the client, we made brought much more interaction into it, and a different kind of gameplay. Because when the client originally was designed and developed, it was supposed to be played with the controller in hand, so like the Xbox controller. And even the first headsets by Oculus back in the days were when they were sent out with the Xbox controller, because they did not have these specific controllers back in the days. And then right before we were ready to release the game, Oculus came up with these prototypes for these new kind of controllers, and we had to learn how they actually work, how they function within the um, 3D space, as in spatial computing, and what you can do with them, and how this can improve the gameplay so much. And then we figured out that yes, it's actually a completely different thing if you if you use these kind of controllers, and it feels more like climbing than it ever did before. And but we wanted to make it still look beautiful, but it was a different kind of category of a game that we never developed so far. So we wanted to give it a very unique look as well, but still make it look beautiful. And I would say that we achieved this because it was and still is a very successful game, both the Climb One and Climb Two on even on the mobile platform nowadays, like the Quest, not just on the PC based HMDs.
I think especially on the Quest. I mean, I don't have the numbers. I mean, maybe you'll be able to shed light on it, but I feel like it's probably done better in terms of sales and financially wise on the Quest headsets than on PC, because it's it's one of the games that when I have someone round, or I go to the house, I take the headset and they experience VR for the first time outside of like the Oculus Quest, demos that they have, where you're playing with some toy guns and you're in like that little van thing. But
Mm-hmm.
apart from that, the first thing I tell them to have a go at is the climb, especially the climb 2 with all the additions that they have, because it's a bit easier for beginners now. The climb 2, I felt the climb 1 was a bit harder, but the climb 2, it has a lot of different difficulty settings, a lot of different settings, so it's a lot easier for a newbie. But yeah, that's the game I always tell people to have a go at. And to see their reactions when they look down and they pretend climbing, but they're moving their arms. It's it's definitely one of my go-to games. That and Beat Saber. So those are the two go-to games when I'm showing off VR to people. So yeah, I feel like especially on the Quest headsets, it's one of those fantastic titles that I think Crytek has done really well, considering they came from that FPS background. And they
Mhm.
did the VR, they did the climbing, with the climb, one and two. Initially, I did play it on PC with the Oculus Rift, but the thing with the Quest is just so easy to play that anywhere you are. It's hard to beat that experience. Having played on like a Valve Index and other more expensive premium headsets, I still prefer the Quest. I can play in any room. I can take you with me. I usually have there's usually no setup, except for drawing a boundary, and it's not going to be long till that gets scanned. Anyway, I know PSVR does like a kind of a scanning thing now. Apple's headset's going to do some sort of scanning, but it won't be long till the VR. I mean, the Quest headsets just scan your room, maybe with the cameras, maybe some sonar echolocation, and you can just put it anywhere. Whereas with PC VR, you plug it in cables. Sometimes this driver's out of date. Sometimes this doesn't work, and I'm like, oh, there's always this issue or another. Plus, because of the how big the games are, if you don't have like an SSD, it makes it more awkward because the loading times can be ridiculous. All that sort of stuff. Whereas with the Quest, it just works. So yeah, I think Crytek did really well with the climb. It's one of my favorite VR games, and hopefully, Crytek does do more VR projects in the future. One more, the bread and butter, the Crysis, maybe a Crysis VR, and some sort of FPS Hunt Showdown, something like that. But then also these alternatives as well. Like, one thing I want to ask you. I don't know if you've noticed this because you said you're not the biggest gamer. I don't know if it's been talked about in Crytek. Is Crytek did an amazing climbing experience with the Climb and the Climb 2. What I've noticed in a lot of VR games, they seem to constantly use the climbing mechanic because you had the new Horizon come out, the VR one with PSVR 2, and so much of it was just climbing and all the time climbing, and I'm thinking, yes, okay, it's nice to have a bit of this in there because it works well, but I feel like I wasn't playing Horizon with climbing. I felt like I was playing the Climb with a bit of Horizon, and I felt that again. Uh, I feel like Crytek has done such a good job with it that everyone is just putting it in their games now because it's an easy sell with VR. Do you know how when the Wii came out, it was an easy sell just to swing the controller, just to hit something like a tennis racket. So like all the games kind of started doing it.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, thank you for the compliment because obviously we did something right with the client.
Oh yes.
We developed a game mechanics that even if you're just using your hands and you're playing a climbing game where your whole body is involved in, and when you climb naturally, it felt pretty well and natural. And you do not miss your feet while climbing. And this mechanics was adopted by many others. And as the Asians mostly say, the biggest form of compliment if people copies your work. So we did something right here, and yeah, we're looking into, of course, new kind of ideas, and especially also in VR and everything. And it's getting there as well in regards of market size, because when we started, it was a very small segment. We invested heavily in VR. We also named our engine. We skipped a whole version number to come to CryEngine V or 5, and the V was standing for VR. So, but we also have to learn that besides our ambition in this kind of market, the market still was very small. And but nowadays, with all these standalone devices, which I'm also a big fan of, I when I'm looking around in my apartment at the moment, I see at least four different kind of VR devices over here, and the most thing used more or less on a daily basis is the standalone device by Meta, the Meta Quest, because it's such a convenience thing. As you laid out all the positive sides of it, and it's just a fun thing to do. And but what I like the most about it, that it gives you so many different kind of opportunities beyond visual fidelity, because It's the same like in the visual effects. You can make a beautiful looking movie with all these wonderful effects, but you need to have a story. You need to have something that is compelling, that really get it under the skin of the people. And somehow we also managed to do this within our games, either if they are like traditional PC games, shooters, FPS, or even VR sports games. So
Oh yeah, like I, I think what Crytek has done with VR is fantastic, and the plus the opportunities that VR brings is it's one of those things that before VR started becoming very popular, the gaming industry was kind of just doing the same thing every year, just a bit better. Always on the TV or maybe on a portable device, but just still effectively, a Switch is just a small TV, or the
exactly.
Steam Deck is just a small TV, or the Game Boy. Whatever portable console you want to talk about, it is just a small TV with a small console all strapped together. It was the same thing, and you had a controller. You interacted with it. Yes, graphics got better. Yes, the motion capture got better. The size of the games got bigger, and you had a few different genres come out. But essentially, the gaming hadn't changed much since the 90s, really, because you went from the cabinets, the arcade cabinets in the 80s, then into the house in the 90s, then didn't really change much. Then with VR, it was a totally and is a totally different experience. It's one of the things that until you experience it, you don't realize how different it is. It is the next level, and I don't think it's going to fully replace it. Just the way motion controls didn't fully replace, just regular, buttons on a controller, and just the way a touch screen hasn't replaced every single physical button on every device, but it's going to provide a lot more opportunities for gameplay experiences that we didn't have before. But talking about VR projects, what other projects does Crytek have in the pipeline? Is there a Crysis VR? I want to see a Crysis VR,
Hmm. This request we receive quite often.
and especially with
And
Crysis 4 now, because before the announcement, for the average person outside of Crytek, it was more of a pipe dream. It was more like, we would love it, but we kind of know it's not going to happen because you're not doing another Crysis. But now that you've announced another Crysis, and you've done VR, and you've done VR very well. Like, I would say, outside of like Beat Saber, not just for me, it must be one of the go-to games for a lot of people. So, like, there must be an internal, push from some people to say VR is picking off. We've also done it well. Let's bring it to Crisis.
but if you just think in plain numbers, the the biggest gaming market is nowadays is still PC and consoles,
Yes, it is.
and so you will reach far more people if you're still producing games, especially a very specific segment of games in for these platforms. And yes, we as I said, I mean, even on Climb 2, we constantly delivering updates in missions and everything. Um, but I cannot speak so much of what we are planning to do, which is not officially announced yet. You need to understand. But you can be sure that we are thinking in a lot of different kind of directions, especially because in the realm of VR, there are so many things that are still doable, which could bring a lot of fun, not just for the home entertainment.
Oh
So
yeah,
maybe it sounds a little bit vague, but that's all I can say. So, and yes, we receive, as I said, this request quite often because people would love to play it in VR, and they sometimes do it with workarounds.
yeah,
Um, uh, and I would love to play it by myself in VR as well. But this is not happen in the very next future. But yeah, just keep an open eye and open mind, and keep Crytek on your your meter scroller and whatever you do to keep yourself update and be curious what is going to happen.
I mean, I'm definitely, paying attention to Crytek just for Crysis 4. I mean, even if they don't announce any other VR, any other, CryEngine little, product or whatever, I just want that next, Crysis. So, talking about Crysis, it was originally only on PC, and it was designed with that in mind. It was a technical marvel at the time. I remember seeing the demos for it that they announced, the tech demos and the demos. And then when the demo came out, I remember that the weekend the demo came out, I was in London. I was at my uncle's house. He had a beastie computer, so he downloaded it, and his computer could only play it at medium or something like that. You have to use medium, the demo itself. But I remember playing it, and I remember just thinking, oh my god, like it was me and my, I say uncle, he's my uncle, but he's like similar age, he's not much older than me. So me and a couple of them, we was playing it, we was talking about it, and we were just mesmerized by it. One, obviously the graphical fidelity. Two, the bit of storyline, that we saw and some of the character interactions. But again, it was so good on PC. Then you had Crysis 2 and 3, and they launched on PC but on consoles as well. And as a result, it had the consoles in mind because it was designed for that from the start, along with PC. So there were cutbacks, and I know that angered a lot of fans because it was less open. Crysis 3 became a bit more open, but especially Crysis 2 is very boxed in, and it didn't feel like Crysis 1, and a lot of people didn't like that. What's Crytek doing to avoid this in future titles, especially Crysis 4? Because, like, I'm sure they don't want that same situation where they came off Crisis 1, then they did what they did with on the consoles, but it angered a lot of fans.
I mean, what we're doing a lot of research and analytics as well. We're trying to listen to the community. I would say we know our fan base and community pretty well. Um, and of course, we try to somehow satisfy our base community, but we're not just trying to develop something uh, which is expected by us from everyone. So this would just fulfill what everyone is seeking anyway. Of course, we're trying to take this into account, but to come up with something that brings the original idea and what made the game so outstanding into the Crysis franchise, especially while working on Crysis 4. So this is what I can tell. And yes, it will be a multi-platformer as well. But so we refactored the engine to make sure that it will get the best out of it for each specific platform. So you will have a full experience on PC as well as on the other platforms. And you can be certain that it will be stunning in so many different ways, but not just on the visual level, but also on gameplay. And the story is also, as far as I have an insight onto it, it will also be very intriguing.
I
So
mean, I hope so. I hope so. So talking about the storyline, is it set after number 3? Because obviously it seemed like it was fully closed, done. Are the Seth in the game? Is Nomad returning? Because people want to know about Nomad as well. Like what can you say?
I don't know, have no idea.
You know, fair enough. I know you can't talk about it too much, but I mean, how far away are we from getting our hands on it?
When we first announced this trailer, it was more to it was more like a clue, not a. It was a teaser for with the main purpose was to recruit people because you need to have great people to work on great games. And of course, we already have a great team. We have more than just one game team in house, and also the engine team and everything. But if you want to produce a AAA title like Crysis 4, you need to have a big team with professionals and specialists. So we still are recruiting and hiring, and we're in the middle of the prototyping and everything. So it will take time, as every good AAA title nowadays. So between 3 and 5 years, which is the most common time for such a title. Even some of the games out there took longer. But we want to make certain that we're not going to release too early, which is something that we see far quite often nowadays,
Mm.
because there's such a big pressure to come up with something new, and a high expectation from the audience out there, that you sometimes um, feel that you need to release even you're not ready yet. And then this can also cause a lot of issues. So, which happened, especially the last 3 years, with some major titles. Like almost everyone on them had like their flaws when they were releasing first. And this is something we try to avoid, especially with such a highly anticipated title like C4, Crysis 4. Um, so therefore, about not or I cannot speak really about a release date, but I can just I mean, for sure you can expect it within. It's hard to say.
Within a couple of years, because
Yeah, within a couple of years, for sure.
okay, okay. So in 2023, 20, I mean, I think I can deal with that
Going
because there's a bunch of
You're
other
not
games that are
expecting
being
it
announced for
this
this
year. I
year.
can tell.
The lot of strong titles for this year, and 2024 there'll be a few. So okay, that's not too bad. Okay, how long's it been in development for? So you said when the announcement came out, there was a big push to try and recruit, but it must have been in development before then. Has it been in development since number three came out, or was there a break and it's only just started a couple of years ago?
I mean, you have different phases of production, and long before you start actually with pre. I mean, you can call everything like pre-production, but concept work, it was ongoing, um, like quite some time, and I cannot tell too much because I cannot spoil, and I will not. And but it was quite an interesting process with a lot of organic changes in between. So we were whiteboxing, testing ideas with a small prototyping team of, so say, 30 to 50 people, to really get to the core of what it could be like. So testing not just because storyline you can more or less easily um, get together. You can do mood cuts. You can create any kind of mood boards. You can visualize it. Get grasp the idea. But gameplay and mechanics and special functionalities you need to create. So we were building, developing, coding, experimenting quite a lot in parallel, both with the visual and storytelling concepts, as well as with the technological concepts. And this is a process which can take up easily up to 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, obviously with a big title like that one, the technical aspect to the obviously it's a big franchise that a lot of people love. So I can imagine Crytek wants to do it right, but also bring something new to the table, not just have a new one for the sake of it. That's one thing I like about Crytek is that you get a lot of studios that will just release game after game, in the same series. Like every year they'll release a new one, or every 2 years, without fail. And then every time the game's buggy, it just feels the same. It's derivative. It's like this. Whereas with Crytek, no matter what you say about Crysis 1, 2, or 3, just looking at those games, they were, I say, robust games. Obviously, you needed a powerful PC to play, etc., etc., etc. But that's like that's something different from it launching, it being buggy, it not playing well, and people just them developers rushing it, releasing day one updates, which has become a huge problem for the industry when you're getting big titles like Cyberpunk 2077, Star Wars
Mhm.
Jedi Survivor that are releasing, and you play them and you think, did no one test this? Like the level of problems that you're having, and it just makes you think that nobody tested it. It's like they coded it and then they just released it without pressing the run button and debugging it. It feels like that for so many titles, and I'm so hoping that when Crytek releases Crysis 4, that it doesn't give that vibe and those problems, because it is more of a new phenomenon. It wasn't really that much of a thing when Crisis 3 came out, and I hope when Crytek launches, they think, okay, the game is ready. Yes, there can be improvements. Yes, we can release updates, but the game overall is what we want it to be from the gameplay wise, the story perspective, plus also it just running well. Because I would definitely rather Crytek wait an extra year, no matter how much I want a new Crisis, but it to be well made and robust, than just get released a year early or 6 months early.
Then I can tell you we're definitely on the same page.
Fantastic. So, you know, look, talk again. Just want to wrap up with Crisis, and then we'll talk about some other stuff about Crytek. Like, what is Crisis bringing to the table? Like, what can you say from a technical perspective that is really going to make people look at it and go, "Whoa!" Is it ray tracing? Is it what is it?
Um, I cannot really tell anything about this. This is because we will have announcement and presentations and teaser upcoming, which will especially inform the target audience or address it to the target audience, which are like hardcore fans and modders and developers, which fell in love with the franchise. And then it will get broader in the communication and stuff to also address it to a new kind of audience, never played Crisis maybe before. Um, but these are like official information, which would be way too early to communicate at this stage at the moment, and it's not on me to say so.
Okay, that's fair enough. So you said you're not the biggest gamer, but what's your favorite Crytek game?
Mm, huh. I have to be honest and need to say it's the climb.
The Climb. Okay. Uh,
So I play this on a weekly base at least.
okay.
So I'm doing a lot of even I'm not a gamer. I'm relatively often in VR. Mostly I'm doing fitness and sports activities, and I recall the climb as a sports activity as well because if you climb for like half an hour, you can really tell the day
You
after, and you
you
can
feel it.
mod your
You
yeah
you do feel
you can you do feel it if you and then you can check your routes, and it really depends on what level you already achieved and so it's a fun game, and it also it's a kind of exercise, and really I don't know, I'm exhausted mentally and physically somehow after a very intense half a minute gameplay.
Oh yeah.
So and therefore I need to say it is the climb. I love the atmosphere um, of Hunt a lot because it's scary. It sets a beautiful mood with the sound and the music, and it as it's not just a simple shooter game where you're just running around, hopping around, jumping around, and just kill because you can die a permadeath, which I like as a concept a lot. So you're really taking care of your character. Uh, and then you can tell it's a PvP PvE game, so also like this kind of gaming concept. And but I'm not. My aim is horrible. Really, it's horrible, and I'm lost all my characters very very easy and very at the beginning, almost always. Therefore, I like the atmosphere of it. I like the game itself. I'm not a good gamer. That is the only reason why I'm not playing Hunt. And Crysis, of course, I played because it was Crysis. So I heard about it. I was overwhelmed by the visual fidelity, and I saw um, the uh, the cut downs on YouTube made by fans and all the mods that they produced, and which I loved. But I was interested on it from a different kind of perspective because when um, I saw Crisis and I saw Rise, Son of Rome, and I was still working within the film industry, I totally understood back in the days that this kind of technology that they were producing with CryEngine would be ideal for the filming industry. And therefore, I have made personal experience when already in 2012, when I was still working within the filming industry, and I started at Pixamondo, where we did the first show and use cases and used CryEngine or Cinebox, especially to do first tests for pre-production like previs, but also for animation tasks where we developed direct plugins for Maya into CryEngine. So like LiveSync, where you could animate in Maya and see it immediately in real time, everything that you animated in CryEngine, which was absolutely nuts back in the days. And therefore, I was a big fan of the technology.
Okay, I mean, yeah, definitely, Crisis, the Crytek technology, and the VR side of it, and yeah, when he was talking about you do any other form of exercise, I remember I went through a phase playing the Climb One, where before going to bed, I would play the Climb One, and I bought wrist and ankle weights, so like it would add to the intensity, especially on the arms. And I remember playing it, and I would even like it was in the summer months. I would close the window. I would make sure I didn't have any shorts on, like full length, tracksuit bottom or something like that. And by the end of it, I was sweating so much, but I would just fall asleep like really quickly. And I remember using that as a form of exercise, and it was great. I mean, you don't need to go to that extreme, but just playing it, like you said, for half an hour, you definitely feel it, and it's it is kind of a therapeutic experience as well. The climb is the music, the colors, the vistas, the visual nature of it. It definitely feels like a calming game, but whilst still being intense. Kind of like Minecraft. It kind of has have those feelings when I play it.
That's what I also liked about the climb a lot because you cannot just play it and climb all the time, but you can just enjoy the view when you're on top of the mountains and we have like representations of actual places. So I've never been to the Grand Canyon in real life, but I've been there, you know. So I was sitting on top of these hills and looked into this beautiful landscape and the sunset and everything, and I experienced moments and realities I'd never experienced before. So this is what I like about the medium VR so much, and also augmented or extended realities. It enables you to dive into another reality and combine the physical and the virtual world. This what fascinates me ever since.
Oh yeah, and what I like about the climb too, because it is in a bit more relaxed because you have the different difficulty settings. You can play without having to do the chalking as well. The chalking is a great thing, especially if you want an in-depth climbing gaming experience. But sometimes you want to climb, you want to get a bit of a workout, but like you say, you just want to enjoy the view, and you don't want to have to be worried about slipping, falling off, as long as you keep hold of it. So the Climb 2 was definitely a great addition to the climb, series. So, did you go to university? And if so, what did you study, and how did that help with the career that you've had?
Ha, good question. No, I did not. Um, I actually started my career as an optician. Um,
Okay, that's interesting.
yeah, but I just did the education, never worked a single day in this kind of job. So it took me 2 years, and right after I went straight onto the military. I had to do my duty for 12 months, and then I was doing music in between, and we had also like a labor contract, and out of the sudden, a friend of mine was working already within the filming industry, and he asked me out if I can help out on a specific event where they were lacking personal. So I never intended to work in this kind of industry, so I stumbled into it, and I figured out that what I could help with was actually needed. So I could provide service, and I seemed to do it pretty well back in the days, especially because I made quite a stiff career in this field. Within a short amount of time, within 3 years' time, I was like a senior producer already. And from there, as I already said, I switched over. Um, I experimented within different departments, then within different kind of um, yeah, like I switched from the commercial film production into the post production, from post production to visual effects into interactive productions, and then I want to do more like this kind of field work, and therefore Crytek was my best choice because I always admired the technical work of Crytek and CryEngine specifically, and therefore I wanted to be part of that kind of development.
Okay. So you said you didn't, go to university. What advice would you give to someone looking to follow in your footsteps? And what's been your biggest regret in your journey so far?
The situation nowadays is completely different than it was back in the days. Nowadays, you can study easily game production, but also all the artistic side of it. So if you're really interested in this kind of, I mean, I'm working with interns like all the time. We have a lot of people coming from the universities, even the juniors. We have direct contact to different kind of universities where we not just recruit, but also give workshops and stuff. And so we, we we see a lot of talent out there. People are really they're coming out of the hobby gamer segment, and they want to reproduce what they love so much. They want to create what they love so much. And if you're passionate about what you do, um, you will figure out a way. So either if you study, which is more common nowadays, or if you do not study but you're passionate about what you're doing, you can find your way into such a high specific job description thingy, or like working in AAA studios nowadays, because we also have people that did not study like me, but they were just self-taught, or working on small projects, and then became specialists in what they're doing. So it's all about passion. It's all about consistency. Um, that's the only advice I can give.
Okay, I mean that's it's good advice. It's advice that we hear a lot on the podcast. Like say be consistent. Put yourself out there, and it's basic stuff, but it's stuff that people you know don't value, or they get wrong, or they don't follow. That's definitely useful. And like you said, things have changed now. There are opportunities to do it via education now,
Exactly.
and there's other alternatives as well, but the biggest thing is you've got to do something. Like it's not going to fall out of the sky. and you're not going to get a job as a director in CryEngine without doing the work, at Crytek, sorry, without doing the work prior to that, like you have. But then it's just because you've been doing stuff, and opportunities open up. Whereas I come across a lot of people, and they're just waiting for that perfect job. They're waiting for that perfect career, whatever it is, and it's like, do something, and you might discover that you did not like what you want to do, and you might discover something else, and a new opportunity will come up. So just keep your eyes open. That's obviously
Yeah,
the best
for sure.
advice.
I mean, life is something you create, right?
Hmm. For sure. It's just
Opportunities come in all over, and I believe in opportunities, and I believe that life in general has always something good to offer. But you need to be able to really to see it, to feel it, to be aware of it, and then you need to take action.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's people talk about luck, and luck is a huge part of life. It's a lot,
Sure.
like I would say 90% of success is luck, but then the other 10% is identifying when luck comes your way and to capitalize on that. Because being born is lucky, yet most people don't live a true life. Being born in the West, where in a
Mhm.
country where it's not war torn, is lucky, yet people do not appreciate that. Being born and having access to clean water, some food, even if you're poor, like you still have more than what people in some Asian countries, in Africa, or even in poorer communities in your own country. Like that's lucky, but people don't capitalize on that. Being born when the internet is around, people don't make use of that. There's so many things that makes literally every, like, anyone that's listening to this podcast, they're lucky. Like the fact that they have a phone or a computer to listen to it on. They have time to listen to it on.
Yeah,
They have an
totally.
interest. Like that's lucky in itself. But you've got to be willing to capitalize on it and not just be passive. 'Cause if you're passive with life, you'll pass you by. Whereas if you're active in life, you'll actively be involved and enjoy it, and build something.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So, one thing I like to do to end the podcast is I have a bunch of fun generic questions, because I've got all of the Crytek and career specific questions out of the way, but I always have some fun generic ones. And the first one is, if you ran a company, would you rather run a 10-person company or a 1,000-person company, and why?
I would start with a 10-person company and build it into a person company. um, and I can tell you easily why, because when you start with just a few people, you get to use to know everyone like quite well. And you really start building a team, which is essential if you want to create something. If you're not just replicate or clone something that where you have a blueprint and you don't know exactly what kind of step you need to do, and there's no uh, creative flow or whatever you will call it involved, then you can do so. But I like to be involved in something that has an creation aspect in it. And so starting with a small team means that you work with people. It's not just about specialists. It's not just about their capabilities. It's about person. It's about people. And and a project is always more than just the visual output that everyone can easily see or buy or whatever. It's you create something. But working or bringing something on a bigger level that you can later work with 1,000 people also needs to have some kind of foundation. And I believe if you start small and with this on a very personal level, try to build something that has not this much of a fluctuation, where it's not driven by, okay, we need to grow as fast as possible, and we it can become more personal, because you choose your inner circle that then become the leadership, and this spirit or values, whatever, can be transported into the whole organization. Um, and this is groundwork, and this you never start groundwork on top of a thousand company that is already built and actively doing good.
Oh yeah, you definitely have to scale up, for sure. And you see companies fail all the time that will get a lot of money, a lot of funding, and they'll scale up. They'll start new projects. They'll ramp up hiring, and then they fail. Like I know people that have got 500,000, million, seed round, angel investment, and then like they failed 2 3 years later because they didn't obviously look at the costs of things. Money was going out like crazy, and then like what they did bootstrapping it compared to what they did with the money, it's just like it just went. And that's just in general, like it's with life. If you're earning money, you're earning good. If you don't take care of it, it will go. And obviously, if you try and scale up too quickly, you'll have issues. And it's that process of scaling from 1 to 10 to 100 to 500 to 1,000. You learn things that you can't learn or that you don't know if you instantly go there. It's like if you've never ran in your life and you try and run 10 miles, you're gonna fail. It's not gonna work out for you. But if you run 100 meters, then build up 200, 500, 1 mile, 5 miles, 10 miles, it's achievable. And that's the same with business, and it's the same with life as well.
Yeah, I would agree. But also, I mean, the other, you could also do the 10 miles from the beginning and it would be achievable, but it would not be sustainable. Because
Yeah, yes, yeah, that's the
after
other
you
thing.
did it once, you're totally exhausted. Yeah, maybe you did yourself some harm.
Yeah.
You,
You hate the process as well because it was
exactly,
so exhausting for you.
exactly. You don't want to do it again and
No.
whatever, whatsoever. So, and yeah, and if you want to compare it to something like this and be yeah, then therefore I would always appreciate more the steadiness in growth, having a steady process, growing together, building something from top up, from top to bottom, or from bottom up to the top. That's this way around would be better. And yeah, because I know how much fun it can be to create something with a team and being or working with a bigger organization. Of course you always have your like team, if it's the management or whatever, but it I like the personal level of collaborating with people. I like the very personal level, and I like to be involved in many things at the same time. At least I need to understand what's ongoing. So, and if you just receive like high level executive information, it's great though. It can work out pretty well. But I love it when I really have a better understanding of everything. Uh,
Oh yeah, for sure, 100%. So, would you rather have 5 million euros upfront or 500,000 a year for the rest of your life, and why?
I would go for half a million
Yeah.
because I don't believe in my investment skills that the 5 million would set me up for the rest of my life. And with half a million, I know already what kind of lifestyle and I could live. And this not just includes like leisure time, but also business related and what I could achieve with working on my personal projects and stuff like that. It would be a big release and give me some kind of freedom to do, to experiment, to travel, to spend time with my beloved ones, and to combine all the aspects that I enjoy the most out of life: working, having free time, spending time with family and friends. So, yeah.
Okay. What's your favorite board game, video game, and movie?
Hmm. So I'm not an easy person when it comes to favorites because I like a lot of different things from for the different reasons. But let's start board game. Hmm. I don't know if you know this, and I have no idea how it's called in English. In German, it's called Mühle.
What's
It's
it
a very
called?
simple. Let me just look it up. I need to look it up.
Yeah.
Uh, Give me a second. I mean, that's oops. So it's called Morris. You
Uh,
know,
Morris video.
Morris, yeah, or the Merrill's, maybe British Merrill's.
Meryl.
Cowboys Checker, it's also called. That's more like the American, but Merrill's. So it's called after the mill. So it's just a few lines and a few dots, and you have like seven stones, white and black, and you need to move them along the grid, and you need to put always three together, and then you can just take away one um, of your other players' little stones, and then you. I mean, it's a little bit like a clever strategic game, but I like it a lot. So okay, so then favorite movie, I don't know this much. One favorite movie, I don't know which one to name, but let's say I like Inception a lot. I like Inception a
It's a
lot
great choice.
for different reasons because I like the concept of dreaming and being in a dream and dream in a dream and the different kind of timelines, multiverse um, concept a lot, and not being assured if what is real and what is not real, or is everything real, and because everything has an effect on the other reality as well. And then it has a beautiful story and it's also visually made beautiful, but they used visual effects in such good manners because it just helps to really transport the whole atmosphere of the story and make the story believable, but it's not overwhelming visual effects like Transformers or something where everything is just visual effects, you know. So it's a very, I like the direction, how it's filmed, how it's produced, and the story, of course, the whole package.
Oh yeah, for sure. Definitely fantastic
And
movie.
the
Favorite
third
board
one,
game. I mean, favorite video game.
a favorite video game. Uh, yeah. Then I stick within the family, uh, and would recall video game and would say it is Hunt Showdown.
And Showdown. Okay. And what video game are you looking forward to? I know you're not the biggest gamer, but there's VR games coming out, probably some mobile stuff. Like what video? There must be a game that you're thinking I'm interested in that.
Jein, as we say in Germany. It means yes and no. Of course, I'm aware of somehow of the market and the releases, upcoming releases, but at the moment, there's not a single one which would trigger me this much that I would love to buy it.
Okay, fair enough. And my final question, which is a two-parter: does money buy you happiness, and what does a good life mean to you?
So, good one, good one. You definitely can have a happy life with money. You can also have a happy life without money, but it makes things so much easier because it helps you get released or do not build up pressure for certain things. So it helps you to get to focus more on more relevant tasks in life, so to say. You know?
Yeah, I
um,
know what you mean.
And a happy life is a life where I really understand, not really, I'm not talking about purpose, but about what I really want, what's really important to me, and and because you need to have a vision. Everyone needs a vision. It doesn't have to be a big vision, because when I was younger and people were talking about visions, I was thinking, okay, uh, I have no idea what you're talking about. But a vision can also be just like a simple goal. Your vision can be, like you said, I want to run 10K next year. So this is my vision. It's a goal. It's a dream. I don't know. You can call it whatever you want. But without any vision or dream or goal, and you can have thousands of them, but you need them, because if you don't have them, you don't know if you're going in the wrong direction. You cannot follow a path because you do not know what the path is. So you need to have some kind of path, and needs to be adopted on a daily basis, sometimes even within a day. Huh? But and you can change plans, but you need to start with a plan, because how to know to change a plan if you don't have one?
100%, I agree. Like you need to have a purpose in life. You need to, like I say, you need to have a purpose in obviously the year and even the day. Have goals. Understand things come up, things change. You might want to reorientate yourself, and you definitely will if you want to be successful and happy. As you grow older, priorities change. Things happen in the economy. Things get released. Whatever it is, things will change. But have a purpose, have a plan. Don't passively live life. Actively make sure that you are involved in it and conscious of the decisions that you are making. It's like if you're reading about science, for example, it is far better to have a purpose for that. Obviously, read for the sake of reading, and it's not a bad thing. You get open up to new experiences. So don't only let's say just study when you have an exam or you've got a job that you're trying to apply for, but have a purpose behind it, and a reason to do things. And one of
Totally.
the areas that I see people really making this mistake, and it's not obvious, is when they're watching TV. And what I mean by that is they'll just put the TV on and they'll just watch the least boring thing to basically pass the time. And
Exactly.
it's different if, let's say, you've got a favorite TV show and it's coming out on a Monday, the new episode's coming out on a Monday, and you're excited for that. You put it on, you watch that episode. That's different. You've got a purpose.
Because it's exactly, that's the
Yeah.
purpose already. Yeah.
Whereas, obviously now you got Netflix, Disney, and all these other streaming services. It's a similar, principle. But when you didn't have those and you just had, cable TV, satellite, that sort of stuff, people would turn the TV on, flick through the channels, and find the least boring thing that they could pass the next 2 hours with. Because, like I said, it's different. If it's Monday, it's 8 p.m., your favorite show is going to come on. Fine, watch that. But when they're just flicking by just for the sake of it, there's literally no purpose. I see with people using social media now. There'll be times, I try and use social media as little as possible, but obviously I scroll as well sometimes, and I'll use it, and will have used it for half an hour or 20 minutes, wasting my time, and I think I wish I had just picked up a controller and played 30 minutes of games, and I would have been a lot happier at the end of it than scrolling on some TikTok or Instagram, whatever it is, or just going on YouTube, because it is that thing. You go on it and you think, oh, I'm not going to be on there long, just a couple of more scrolls, and you waste so much time. I just think I wish I had just done something. It doesn't have to be work. Something I actually would want to do, like I said, play a game
Uh,
or watch a
that's funny.
TV show.
That's funny. I had quite a similar chat with my oldest one, like Saturday. So he had an argument with my wife, my former ex-wife, about gaming. So he's 20, or he's turning 20, and he just he got his driver's license, motorbike license, on Saturday morning. So yeah, and he was excited and everything, but he didn't want to go out and meet friends. He just wanted to chill at the evening at home playing games and stuff. And there's this younger son of mine also living there, and so my wife, she cut it off the Wi-Fi, and and Kian was totally pissed because he wanted to play his games, and he said, and she said, no, you can always watch anything on Netflix or blah 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 on the streaming platforms. Just watch a series, watch a movie. And he said, no, this is dead time because there's not one movie I would like to see right now on purpose. So I would do that if there was like this specific movie I'm into, I would love to see it, but I'm not. So I'm not just wasting my time hanging passively on the screen, just killing time. I want to play. I want to be active. I want to chat with my friends. And I want to be actively doing something. And that's what he's recalling. Gaming is active time for him. So because it's also a social time. He's with his friends all the time when he's playing.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a very interesting thing. So when you're saying with his friends, are you still just talking about like he's in his house, his friends are in their house, or are you talking about they're physically in the same room?
No, they're not physically in the same room. This happens not so often. He's meeting friends, but they're not meeting for gaming. Sometimes a friend swing by or something, but most of the time when they're playing, they're meeting online. And these friends are located in the near neighborhood, but also there are people from all over worldwide. They come together for years now. Like they're playing together 4 years, 5 years, knowing each other, never met in real life. But if you meet up like twice or 4 or 5 times a month since 4 years, you get to use a person, get to know a person somehow.
Oh yeah, you
I mean,
definitely do.
this is fantastic. And so they both of them they had no issue with all the corona and lockdowns and stuff because their life was already happening like online somehow. Of course, they both love physical relationships and friendships and meetings and everything, but they live in completely different kind of life that I was living when I was younger, so I cannot complain to with or argue with them. You should do this or you should do that, and do not be online like all the time because that is not my lifestyle. It's I grew up differently, and I'm still a digital native somehow, or I'm working within technology and stuff. But this is so different. My kids and the next generation, and even with their 5 years difference, they both experience life different already on the technological side and aspects of them. So for my younger one, it will be even more natural to use all these um, AI tools and stuff than it is for my older one. Even they now getting into it all the time, but the 5 years difference make a difference. 5 years,
Huge
it's so
difference.
short, such a short time. But now it feels like it's I don't know, it's like a century or 10 centuries. I don't know.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like the difference is insane. I remember I finished university in 2014, and in 2016 I was invited back to be a lecturer, and I was
Uh-huh.
lecturing C++ games programming, game design, basically on a gaming course because that's what I did at uni. And
Hmm.
the students there in 2016, between me starting and them starting, was only about a 5 year gap, give or take. But they were all over Discord. I use Discord, but like that was their primary chat
Exactly.
chat application. For me, it had a specific purpose, whereas for them that was the thing to go to. And
Exactly.
they was all about these online battle arena video games, whereas for me I grew up more on RPGs, FPS, those sort of games, and racing games. So those were the games I gravitate towards. And even now, the battle arena style games, I don't play as much just because it's not what I grew up with. I prefer the other sort of game, and just to see the difference in what they use and how they use technology. And like I said, it was a matter of 5, maybe 6 years,
Mm.
and the difference was insane, and it's just going to get even more. And like just as you mentioned with AI, before we wrap up, like, what's your take on ChatGPT, AI, and like, is Crytek doing anything with AI for their? Obviously, they have AI in games, they always have, but with the new sort of AI.
I mean, we're looking pretty closely into recent developments for sure, as we're constantly developing our technology. Um, but we also are aware of some kind of legal restraints at the moment, especially when it comes to generative AI, because it would be a blast to integrate these kind of technologies, especially generative, um, into let's say all the design works of characters, of environments, of the whole gaming world. Just imagine that you're playing, you can decide by starting the game if you would like to play it in a historical environment or an ancient or in a futuristic or whatever, and this could be made up, I mean, just as a general idea over the course of the next 10 years or something, and then you play in a completely different setup. The same game and everything is adapted somehow. You have still the same story arc, but the large language models behind them can reinterpret the whole purpose of what you meant when you prompt at the beginning. So today I want to play this in a futuristic environment. Let's say in 2071, and then the whole game will adapt. These are things or visions that, of course, will take years and years to come. But on simpler levels, you could do so much things already when it comes to textures and to the whole asset creation. But on the legal side, you're still running into issues, and we will for sure will develop stuff that is for 100% legal proof.
Yeah.
So, and we're researching and observing all the different kind of trends, and I'm a huge fan. I was giving presentations like 5 years ago where I was talking about the things that I researched back in the days, and we're observing like trends, because I'm researching every day in so many different kind of areas, because I'm just curious. That's all I am. I'm just a curious person, and I'm also, but I don't have like, I have a few like focus points, and then I have these edges of these focus points, which also come with edges. And sometimes you get an information about something completely different that somehow is connected to something completely different, and then it all fits together. And that's what I love um, about research and about the world in general. To be honest, how everything is somehow connected. Mm, I don't know. Sorry.
No, I know what you mean.
Kind of just drifting away, but I don't know. I'm a curious person, really. I love it. I love to figure out stuff, and I love every time I'm getting back in this kind of state, because sometimes, as everyone, you get caught up by life and or by certain events, blah blah blah. But somehow it happens that still can get into this kind of feeling, really getting into it, really getting exciting about what I'm doing when I'm doing what I'm doing. And that's what I love the most.
Oh yeah, like, the technology advances you see, and just seeing them, interacting with them, and you don't have to be a master at all of this stuff, but just having the open mind to interact with it, look at it, see what things are about. I use ChatGPT so much now. It definitely has enhanced my life. It's one of those things that it's like Google. It's definitely going to change things. Maybe not ChatGPT specifically, but that type of AI modeling system. And I do look forward to it when it gets into video games, and it's
Totally.
creating environments on the fly, it's creating storyline on the fly, or dialogue on the fly as
I
well.
mean, this is
Uh,
happening already. You see so many games that
mm,
pop out that use like ChatGPT and other large language models for to keep the story more active, more interactive, and it really works out well. So I'm a big fan of that. And what I like about this whole development within the AI segment nowadays, it's so easy. The interfaces are simple. It's easy to adapt. You just need to learn the specifics about, let's, if you talk about prompting, prompt engineering, and why you do what you do. But the tool itself is not just one tool. And out of the sudden, it's like you're owning a company just by one tool set. And then you combine maybe one or two, and you can do even greater things. But it comes back to the idea. That's what I love about the possibilities that, in my opinion, the AI technologies we're seeing at the moment is bringing to all of us. It really comes back and breaks it down to the idea, because you have tool sets that enabling you in so many different ways, which are enabling you in so many different ways that you could not even think about just like 10 years ago.
Oh yeah, like what it's what it's doing and the capabilities that it's going to bring. It's mind boggling, but it's also exciting. And obviously, like I know you're saying it's in some video games, but I can't wait till it's in the bigger games. Like the Crysis, games, and it's just in a small way. Like how in Crisis you can have side missions? Like if you don't do the side missions and you get to the main mission and there's like a particular type of dialogue, and then if you do the side mission, but depending on what order you do them, how long you take, and let's say if you did it silently, I know you can do that with just essentially a lot of conditional logic, but obviously the AI aspect of it would definitely make it a lot more dynamic. That's what I'm really excited for. I mean, it's great to have generative environments and full generative experiences, but the small stuff where it's very
Mhm.
concentrated, and the overall part of it is pre-coded, pre-built, but then there's certain aspects, and you just you listen to it or you interact with it and you think that actually feels like I'm talking to or I'm interacting with a real person, not just some text, some dialogue that was written by a human that is just getting pre-read.
Exactly, nothing pre-produced. So, like you said, interactive, but not on a what if, but more
Yeah, yeah,
on a
exactly.
conversation level. Yeah, like
Yeah,
yeah.
and if that affects the dialogue later in the game, let's say if at the start of the game you're not the the best at shooting and you're missing a lot, and then towards the end of the game you're really good. Like one of the characters is like you've come a long way since so and so, they won't say so and so level, but so and so mission at this island, for example. Like a comment like that would be fantastic. Or it's like you really like using the shotgun, don't you? Something along those
Mhm.
those lines.
I know.
That sort of stuff. It just makes you think. Ooh. Plus, it means when you play it again, if you change things up a bit, you'll get that slightly different experience in that dialogue and the replayability aspect as well, because it's going to be a bit different the next time you play it. Plus, because if you've already played it now and you know how to do certain things, you know how things work in the game, what's the dialogue going to be as a result of that, and what's the potential for cross game logic transferring over. Like, let's say playing Crisis 1, and then let's say, assuming they were all built using some sort of AI model like this in mind, and then playing Crysis 2, and then you just seen dialogue based on the experience and the things that you did in number one, like how you have saves that carry over and you unlock stuff, but that with dialogue, or what you've done, for example.
Yeah, I can tell that you really were thinking a lot about the opportunities and potential of this kind of technology,
Oh yeah,
as we
oh yeah, for
we
sure.
are the for sure. I mean, this is exactly what I was talking about. We have this kind of meetings where we also discuss asking more or less similar questions as an open format, and because so many people have different kind of insights, but also like not just technological insights, but also like complaints, and are scared, or and so we have this open kind of dialogue about these kind of technologies. and it's always come and then it really turns very quickly turns into more like a brainstorming meeting. uh, what you can do and how you can use it. Then someone brings up some kind of reference, and it's beautiful. I love it. These are the moments I love the most because then it's a very, very like getting constructive and creative. Yeah.
100%.
Opportunities. I love opportunities. 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 Bring them. Make them happen. Make it
Yeah.
possible.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. What it brings, all this new stuff. So yeah, I mean, that's it, folks. That's what I have to ask Pascal. I mean, it's been great having you on, Pascal. Appreciate you taking, the 2 hours or so that we've been on the podcast to come on. I look forward to seeing, Crysis 4. I look forward to seeing the other announcements that you've, kind of hinted at and teased from Crytek. So I can't wait for them. And, hopefully you'll come back on the podcast again, let's say, when there's something that's come out, another announcement, so we can talk about them more in depth, because I understand, you can't talk too much about certain unannounced, products. So yeah, thank you, Pascal, for coming on. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and anyone that is listening, I'll see you in the next episode of FireDEV, and go check out Hunt Showdown and the other Crytek products. Obviously, take a look at Crysis if you haven't played it, but make sure you got a bit of money saved, because you're going to need it for your computer.
Thank you so much for having me. It was my great pleasure.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye bye.